We narrowly fled the Cyclops, but we could not escape his curse, nor our own poor judgment. As Dawn took her throne, we arrived at a floating island. We rejoiced, for we had entered the domain of Aeolus, god of the winds, beloved of the immortals. He welcomed me for a fortnight, granting us Xenia while asking of Troy and our adventures. At last, Aeolus, the god of the winds, granted us a seafaring wind and me a gift, a dusky leather bag. Aeolus's generosity contained all the storm winds he could gather. A divine action, leaving only a caveat to heed and a sufficient breeze to hoist our spirits and fill our sails. For 9 days and nights we glided across the wine-dark sea, and upon the 10th we beheld the glorious shores of Ithaca, a low, rugged island whose skies are filled with the righteous plumes of sacrifice, a veritable oasis upon the open sea. But we were not meant to return, for we were cursed. For as I slept, my men, without thinking, opened Aeolus's leathery bag, thinking it full of hoarded treasure, and,
Ready?
Of course,
Watch the bag.
all the winds burst free.
All right, here I go.
A storm seized our oars, which had deadened our sails, yet now were violently lifted as if by sudden propulsion, as the cyclonic winds escaped the bag, tossing our ship back the way we came, leaving me tousled and turned. To further our dismay, when we returned to Aeolus, he turned us away, knowing only now that the gods were against us. We were cursed. We felt an unfriendly air about us, for we knew the gods aid only those who strive. From there we sailed on for 6 or 7 days until we reached the land of the midnight sun, where the Laestrygonians lived, a race of giants. Promontories encompass a harbor, leaving only a narrow mouth that entices travelers to enter. My men drove all the ships inside, mooring them side by side. But I kept my own ship outside the maw, fastened to a rock, for its mouth left my heart ill at ease. I sent out scouts to learn what manner of people lived there, hostile or hospitable, for the sun neither dimmed nor brightened. Upon entering the Laestrygonian city, they met an unnaturally sized girl who was drawing many times a man's share of water. She lured my men into the halls of her father, to his lair, and there my men consumed great quantities, while the mother served portion after portion. They ate beyond measure, and yet the boards still sagged with what no man could finish. While my men still ate, the father returned home with an amphora of oil as large as a mountain.
Oil? You say something about oil?
At once, the father seized one of my men and made a dreadful meal of him, while the mother raised the alarm. Like a tempest, the Laestrygonians rushed down the mountain, fanning out upon the promontories and attacking us like savage beasts, hurling rocks from the cliffs, crushing ships and men together. As if by Poseidon's will, I watched in disbelief the Laestrygonians spear my companions like fish on long hooks, dragging them out to be consumed. The harbor rang out with screams and splintered wood. In dire straits, I frantically hacked at the stern cables with my blade and ordered my men to row for their lives. So few escaped. Alone, we sailed on, driven by a heartless fate. From there, we came to the island of Aea, where the goddess Circe lived, a dread goddess with enchanting hair and a charming voice. We landed, and for 2 days and 2 nights no man stirred, so broken were we by toil and torment. On the 3rd day I rose, took my spear and sword, and went inland, to learn what sort of land this was, hostile or hospitable. From a height, I beheld smoke rising through the trees. So I returned and sent companions to scout ahead while I stayed behind, divided between hope and fear, contending with my dread. By my command, they entered Circe's halls, built of smooth stone in a clearing of the forest, and around it prowled jaguars and wolves, not savage, but fawning like cholos. The enchantress sang sweetly as she worked at her loom, and bade my men drink her sweet, tantalizing concoction, a mixture of maize, pimento, honey, and wine, steeped in a baneful spell meant to deprive them of their manhood. When they had drunk her potion, she smote them with her wand and shut them in sties, turning them into swine, pig-headed, complete with bristles and voices to match their forms, though their minds remained their own. Only Eurylochus stayed suspicious of a trap. Being fleet of foot, he recoiled and recounted to me all that had happened, weeping as he spoke, but unable to decant the mystery of the drink. Upon hearing this, I took up my blade and bounded toward the halls of Circe. As I breached the forest, the slayer of Argus met me, Hermes, the messenger of the gods. He bade me heed his prophetic warning, for Athena had warned me to beware of Circe's tricks, and gave me a black-rooted herb to eat to ward off her beguiling. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, warned me of Circe and her bewitching wand. He advised me to draw my blade and rush upon her, and she, in fear, would swear a great oath. So I went on to her grand hall, and she mixed me the same concoction, but because of Hermes, the potion did not master me. Circe then smote me with her wand and bade me go to the sty. Conversely, I drew my blade and sprang upon her. Overwhelmed, Circe cried out when she recognized my intention. She swore the oath Hermes prophesied, and no evil was worked upon me, nor would it be, if in turn I bound myself to the same oath. Thus I accepted that divinity can never be denied. As the deal was struck, I made her restore my companions, and she anointed them with oil. They became men once more, younger, taller, and fairer than before. Because of our good fortune, we wept together, and Circe bade us stay, and for many seasons we did, feasting on meat and wine, forgetting the arduous road home. Yet all things have their season. As the year had run its course, dried laurels scattered the land, and my companions gathered round me, eager to know my plan. Then Circe spoke plainly, saying I must first journey to the house of Hades, if I wanted to learn the way. At this my heart sank, and I wept, for never had I heard of any man who sailed to the land of the dead and returned alive. Yet Circe knew no other way. We made ready the ship at once. Circe herself sent a fair wind for our departure. But first, dismay struck again. Elpenor, the youngest of my men, lay drunk upon the roof, and at dawn, startled by voices, fell headlong. In silence, we questioned the fates, but made headway, heavy with foreboding, until we reached the deep waters where the Cimmerians dwell, a land of endless night, forever enshrouded in mist, never touched by sun. There we beached the ship, and I prepared the rites as Circe had commanded. An air of unease floated about, for soon the dead would come. Our mission was to seek the counsel of Tiresias, the blind prophet whose mind remains unclouded in death. In the hours of the faintest light, when the stars had shifted their places, I dug a trench about a cubit wide and made ready for the dead. First I offered my libation. Then I sprinkled white barley, an obescent mixture worthy of summoning the dead. I then prayed to the forlorn ghosts and promised that when I reached Ithaca, I would sacrifice a red heifer to them all, and to Tiresias alone a black ram, the pride of my flocks. I cut the throat of the sheep, the dark blood flowed, into the trench, into the earth, into the underworld. At once the spirits came thronging up from cloud and mist, up from the dark, up from the deep. Recent brides, young men fallen before their time, old men worn from toil, maidens crossed from love spoiled, and mighty warriors slain in battle, still bearing the marks of the spear, while my own blade rattled. I drew upon my courage and would not let go. For no shades could come near until Tiresias, the blind prophet, should have his blood. I held them back, held them fast, until the prophet came, bearing his golden staff, and drank his fill, and knew me at last. He told me of the long road still before me, of the trials of Poseidon,
different kind of hats,
and then a dire prophetic warning of the cattle of the sun god Helios.
Keep an eye on that.
When he had spoken, he sank back into what is unspoken, and the dead pressed closer still, craving a token. After Tiresias had withdrawn, the shade of my companion Elpenor came near, unburied without tears. Shocked by the vision of this apparition, he bade me to remember, when I returned to the light,
burn my body with armor and right. Raise me a mound on the headland high. Set my oar upon my tomb, that my name not die.
Then the spirit of my mother, Anticlea, appeared, whom I had left alive when I sailed for Troy. I would have clasped her, but thrice I reached, and thrice I tried, and thrice she slipped away, like a fleeting dream. In lament, she spoke of our home, of my faithful wife wasting away with grief, and of my father, worn with age and sorrow, enduring a lonely life in the fields without relief. After her came the mighty shades of the past. Agamemnon, betrayed. He told me of his murder and warned me of treachery and hubris. 2 daggers in the dark, one strikes the flesh and one strikes the heart. And then Achilles, fleet-footed and glorious, whom I praised as ruler amongst the dead. But he answered that he would rather be a slave upon the earth than be dead and rule over all the lifeless shades. Fear seized me then, lest dreaded Queen Persephone, goddess of spring, should send up from the underworld some monstrous shape, and I hastened back to the ship, calling my men together, eager once more to return to the light. We put out from the clouded mist, and Circe received us again on her island, welcoming us kindly. First, we buried Elpenor, burning his body with armor and rites, raising a mound for him on the headland and fixing his oar upon the tomb as he had asked. After the funeral of Elpenor, the goddess Circe spoke of our journey, warning me of all that lay ahead.